with everyone about the challenges that you're facing as a mobile marketer in the social networking space, specifically focused around Facebook, although we will touch base on some other social platforms as well. First off, let me introduce myself so you know who you're talking to. My name is Tasha Bishop, and I'm the VP of Customer Success here at Appnique. I'll be mediating the conversation today and be watching the questions as they come along and guiding the conversation. So feel free to interact with me through the questions section of your webinar panel. Unfortunately, you will be muted, but I will definitely be monitoring the questions and be able to communicate with you guys that way. Our agenda for today is going to be working with a discussion with our panelists, who you can see on the screen right now, that I will do a quick introduction with, and we'll have a discussion and presentation, and then we'll follow with a questions section for all of the individuals within the panel. So feel free to ask those questions in the questions section. If you'd like a specific panelist to answer that question for you, please specify that within your question. And the webinar will be available for download within the next 24 hours, so you will definitely be able to have access to this post-conversation. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to let me know. So let's jump into the introductions of our panelists. And so I'm very excited about the great group of individuals that we have on our panel today, because between them we have a good number of years of experience in both online marketing as well as data mining, specifically in the mobile space. So I'm looking forward to getting some good answers from these individuals and having some great discussions. So I'm going to start out with Phillip Runyan, who is a UA consultant at Gamehouse. And we're excited to have you here. Phillip, can you give a little detail about your history and background?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on board here. So, little under 14, 15 years now. God, it's so funny when you say that. You know that those dates out loud. It just makes you feel really old really quickly. So I've been in online marketing for just shy of 15 years now. More so in the social space in the last 4.5 years, definitely with a much more heavier emphasis on mobile. I was one of the original 10 people who got Double Down Interactive off the ground running. The only UA, CRM, monetization, email marketing, SEO person at Double Down for well into the first 6 months. Drove UA well into the million DAU mark, which was quite the feat back in the day. Now it's not as big a deal. But and now just over here at Gamehouse and helping these guys figure out how to best get their users on board at best price and returning their advertising dollars back to them.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that description. Jeff Hoefer is our next panelist, and Jeff comes to us from Placed and is the campaign manager there. So, Jeff, can you give us a little bit of background on your end?
Yeah, thanks for having me. As you said, campaign manager here at Phillip. Been here almost a year. Previous to this role, I was over at Big Fish Games for about 6 years, managing a number of different customer and user acquisition campaigns on the PC Mac side when casual games were still really big on desktop. And before leaving there, had a good 2-3 years in the mobile or on the mobile side of things. So most recently there managing Big Fish Casino UA. I believe that's still in the top 5 grossing apps in the App Store. I don't know, it's been a while since I've looked. Now my current role at Placed, I'm here managing all of our panel recruitment. So we have a few owned and operated apps that comprise of that overall panel, and we also work with other app developers where we give them our SDK and we partner with them that way. So yeah, it's great being here and looking forward to the webinar.
Great, thanks so much, Jeff. And then our last panelist for today is Jaisimha, and Jay is the CEO and founder of Appnique. And so Jay, I'd love to get some more detail from you for the rest of the group.
Hi guys, great to have everybody here, and thank you for joining. I've started Appnique in the fall of 2011, but I've been thinking about analytics as a topic for at least, I'd say, the last 25 years since I first started thinking about and working on analytics-related projects, and have been in the mobile analytics space off and on since 2002. And really excited to be here.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, I appreciate our panelists for joining us today. We definitely have a lot of experience between the three of you guys, and so we're hoping to learn a lot and help give some good information to our attendees here. So from this point on, I'm going to jump into some questions that I have for the three of you, and we'll mix it up and throw it around. So attendees, if you have questions that pop up along the way, let me know. The first one I want to start out with is, as we know, Facebook is a very popular social media platform that we're using to advertise with. So, Philip, I want to talk with you initially because you have 15 years of experience in online marketing. Can you tell me how long you've actually been acquiring mobile users through Facebook?
That's been, let's see here. So most of my work at Double Down was on Canvas, and I left there in April 2012. I started consulting internationally after that, so probably since mid-2012 has been right about the time when I started focusing more heavily on the mobile side and less so much on Canvas.
Okay, great. And then Jeff, how about you as well? Oh, Jeff, did we lose you?
Oh, sorry, I'm on mute. A little over 2 years. A little over 2 years. So a year and a half, roughly. Actually, more than closer to 3 years, I guess. Year and a half at Big Fish. So that entailed our PC and Mac. We were doing some customer acquisition campaigns on there, and then when mobile rolled out, we were spending pretty aggressively there at that time, and then now with Placed, still doing it. So. Excellent.
So with the both of you, you've been about 3 years each is kind of what it sounds like. And so, Jeff, maybe you can start out with, over those 3 years, and talk about the trends and the things that you've seen change over the last couple of years within your Facebook experience for mobile advertising.
Just say, it's constantly changing. I think the most positive things I've seen, just the level of reach that we can get there. I mean, Facebook continues to grow. The level of targeting we can grab through there, it's been really, really beneficial on all of the products that I've been advertising through that channel. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, definitely. Jay, I'm going to jump to you now with this one. So I know you've been focused on Facebook for quite some time, and I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your experience of advertising with Facebook over the last few years, and give a little insight into the trends you're seeing over time.
Yeah, at Appnique we started out in the App Store optimization space, and not long after we launched our products, people started asking us for help with paid UA. I originally thought all channels were created equal, and we started buying on Facebook as well as other networks who will go unnamed here, and found very quickly that Facebook was the most effective channel. So I'd say a little over 2 years now, but exclusively on mobile from the beginning. So that's kind of been our focus.
Got it. So then, Jay, continue on. Oh, so go ahead.
Sorry. In terms of what I think what's been the most interesting thing about Facebook definitely has been, of course, the ability to get the best ROI for our customers, and I think that's been definitely the most exciting thing about Facebook relative to other channels.
Okay, and actually that leads me into my next question, which was really, with your experience, what is the most positive experience you've had with Facebook? Is it based around the ROI, or are there other positive experiences you're seeing as you're moving forward the interaction of user acquisition within Facebook?
I think, if you want to just sort of take that very dry term ROI, inside it as sort of the collective hopes and aspirations of everyone that launches an app is they want to spend money, but at the end of it, they really want users to stick around and engage with their brand, whatever app or brand they're putting out. And I think that's been one of the most impressive things about Facebook has been, the ability to ensure that people who acquire the app are, a much higher percentage of those people stick around and do engage with the application. And then, of course, if you have a viable monetization or ROI mechanism, it tends to produce those returns for you.
That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. And actually, I'm going to turn that over to Philip a little bit to get your insights too. Obviously, as we know, it's not just acquiring a user, but it's actually maintaining that user over time to ensure our customers get the return on their investment. What's your experience with post-install metrics with Facebook, Philip?
Well, I think a lot of developers go in thinking, and a lot of times with minimal analytics on hand, right? That their users are engaged, have got a great app, and they think that if they acquire the user, then there will be just enough of the game, amongst 40 other apps that the average user has, or whatever that golden number is on their device. You need to continue to invest beyond just that initial acquisition. Push notifications can only do so much for you. You will have to continue to engage companies like Criteo and even your own internal efforts to be able to go out, and you have to re-get these people. You have to reacquire them, and that's not so much saying they have to reinstall the app, but it's saying, hey, look, if you're looking at your lapse day data and saying it's been 3 days and these people are coming back in, it's a lot cheaper now to go in and say, hey guys, remember us? Here's something we can kick you, than just saying, well, we paid to acquire them. That person didn't stick around, so that's that. Just have a stomach for that, and just own the fact that you are going to be pulling on multiple levers to re-engage as customers. Few and far between will an app just naturally have 20+% engagement.
Right. Very good point. So Jeff, I'm going to turn over to you on this next question. We obviously know there's a lot of positives on Facebook, but there's also challenges, which is why I think a lot of the attendees are actually here today. Can you explain to me some of the bigger challenges that you faced over the last few months in acquiring users?
Yeah, I think kind of goes back to the changes that Facebook is constantly making. As a marketer, managing a ton of other campaigns with other publishers, it can be at times tough to keep up with those changes, and more importantly, get communication about those changes from your Facebook account rep, if you will. I know back at Big Fish, they were pretty responsive in that manner, getting these changes and when they were going to be made, so on and so forth. But going to a smaller company where we don't spend as much, having that level of communication and getting those changes have been a little difficult. So I guess that's been kind of a pain point. I mean, you can't afford not to spend on Facebook. It's such a great channel, and compared to other publishers, hands down, the ROI is just considerably better.
Sorry, I had muted myself. Jay, I'm going to turn over to you on this one. Can you explain to me, with your experience, some of the bigger challenges that you see as well, in addition to what Jeff has just mentioned?
I think definitely one of the things that a lot of campaigns we run and other folks run as well run into is volatility. So things where things change on a day-to-day basis, and we're not talking about structural changes like Jeff was hinting at, but also just day-to-day performance of a campaign, staying on top of all the different things that are happening, and why they're happening, trying to deduce why they're happening, figuring out what to do about them. That can be a constant, I won't say struggle, but it takes work. And I think even the care and feeding of a campaign, or as our CTO refers to it, the farming of campaigns, I think is something that needs to be paid attention to a lot.
Great. Well, so let's switch off onto different subjects really quick. And Phillip, I'm going to turn over to you on this one. So obviously we know that there are some challenges with the platform itself, but there's things that we can do to give ourselves some advantage. And one of those things would be really actually creating the strongest campaign possible. And so, Phillip, if you were going to create a strong campaign, what are some of the things that you try to focus on to get the best results?
Well, fail fast, right? I mean, I think especially for a lot of small, even large businesses, they kind of lose sight of that, of get something into market, test it, throw a good amount of traffic at it, and see whether or not it's going to sink or swim. So, utilizing OCPM on Facebook is definitely the fastest way to do that. Are you going to net out probably your best paying customers or your cheapest customers, whatever that may be, depending on your metrics? Probably not, but it will definitely give you a good, quick indicator based upon the targeting which you've done, if you're too broad or incredibly specific, which you'll see in your CTR numbers. and using that data to say, okay, cool, this is a campaign that we're seeing that when we identify these particular cohorts of individuals, it resonates well with them. Then you can go back and you can redo your pricing structure to help you better hit those numbers you need in order to net out positive.
Yeah,
So
great.
that's fail fast, I would say, is definitely the best thing you can do.
So can I ask you the question then is, what is considered fast in your idea of the word?
Well, it can be a time frame. It can be a dollar amount. Typically, when we launch campaigns over here, I watch it within about a half a day just to see what's happening with it. The way how we structure our campaigns and our
Looks like we might.
Other buyers. I'm sorry.
Oh, it looks like we might have lost you for a second, but please continue.
Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, a lot of times I wouldn't say so much a dollar amount because you can when you do OCPM on Facebook, it may fire out at a $40 CPM, sometimes even higher. And so I'm not so much overly concerned about the price of those users. What I'm looking at is click-through rates and then click-to-install rates as well. That's the first leg of it, just making sure that, okay, we found the right cohort of individuals, they're clicking, they're installing, and never mind the cost of those users, then going back and refactoring the campaigns for our bidding strategies that are conducive to how we operate.
Great, thank you. Jeff, I'm going to take that question and change it around a little bit. My question to you is going to be, if you could choose one thing to focus on for setting up that campaign, what would you choose? What is the most important thing in your mind?
Post-install metrics, by far. Unfortunately, with the divorce between Facebook and Tune, we don't really have those things right now, so we look at it on a blended, or we take a blended approach to it currently. But when I was back at Big Fish, we would get as granular as the creative and how that person that converted from that creative performed over a certain period of time. So those post-install metrics were super, super helpful, and I think one of the most important things we were able to get and gather from the campaigns that we're doing on Facebook.
Excellent, thank you. And Jay, I'm going to pose that question to you as well, because I think this is a pretty important one that our attendees are interested in hearing about.
Yeah, of course, definitely. Call me a little biased. Well, all of those factors matter. I'll definitely throw targeting out as an important area to really focus on, because there's always a feeling that, hey, if you target, you'll end up with too small a pool of users. But one of the wonderful things about Facebook is there's such a plethora of targeting options that are available that if you take really full advantage of it, you can reach large pools of users who are more likely to interact or engage with your offering, and I think that's something that we love to see effective use of. So
absolutely. All right, so then becomes the wish list. As we all know, we face challenges within using Facebook and other networks. If you had your one wish of what Facebook could do but can't actually do, what do you think that would be? And I'll start with you, Jay, on that one.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd love to see is performance metrics on an individual target basis. If you provide them with a list of interests or targets, I'd love to see performance measures, click-through rates, CPI, CPMs coming back, so you can actually make decisions on which interests or targets to include or exclude without having to sort of deduce that.
Great. Philip, same question to you. What is it you wish Facebook had that it doesn't currently have right now?
Besides the same pricing they had back in, say, 2012, 2013?
Yes, besides that.
Well, besides that, probably nothing. They're moving now towards kind of owning the attribution side of things, right? I mean, they've told everybody, hey, by the way, we're going to be offering this free product. And I would say that because they already hold all the data, they know everything about us and the user and whatnot. It kind of only makes sense for that to happen. So, I guess improved attribution, in-house, kind of what Jay was just saying, which it sounds like they've already got in the books and that's happening anyway. So. And so yeah, a few-year-old pricing and better attribution, I think definitely is it.
Great. And Jeff, I'm going to give you your wish too, or at least let you state your wish. I can't actually grant it, but if you could let us know what it is that you prefer to see on Facebook too, that would be great.
Yeah, really no need to elaborate more than what Jay had said. You know, it's around the attribution. It would be amazing to get that that access.
Great. And those of you that are attending, if there's things that you guys want to throw out too of things that you'd like to see, we'd love to hear them as well. The last question I have right now on the initial panel is I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll hit each one of you up. Starting with you, Philip, actually. What other social platforms are you considering using outside of Facebook within the next few months?
We're going to be doing some tests here with Instagram as well as Twitter. Here shortly, we have a couple of games over here at Gamehouse which resonate well also with the Eastern European market, and so we're going to dig into VK, which I'm not sure if a lot of you know, but Playtika, before they were purchased by Caesars Interactive, that's really where they launched. They saw quite a bit of traction over there. So, you know, in games where we can get away with doing things like that, and we can target, you know, these monetizing users, but the costs are excruciatingly low, you know, we'll continue to do that. There's also some platforms specific to our Brazilian friends, which we want to hit because they have the bodies, right? The volume is there, and looking forward to getting in front of them in their native tongue and providing games for them as well. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do here in the very near future.
Thank you. And Jeff, same question to you.
Yeah, so we've done multiple tests on Twitter. Cost is just really high. This goes to or into the gaming category and lifestyle with our current apps. User ROI on that wasn't too bad. I mean, it was high, but it wasn't high enough for it to make sense to continue on those platforms. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm a pro by any means advertising on Twitter, so there could be some fault had on me. But definitely, you know, it's worth a test, you know, down the road to try that again to see if, you know, we can do some other targeting there. Pinterest would be interesting, but I don't think it's a fit for our app currently. But if that were to become available or to make sense, it would be an interesting channel to go after.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And Jay, I'm going to round that out with you. If you could just real quick give us an idea of what other social platforms you're looking at as well.
So I think for us, definitely Twitter is going to be an important one that we continue to you know, deepen our offering for, especially because Twitter has been really trying to emulate Facebook in sort of in terms of many of the targeting options it offers. And so we feel like what we've learned, you know, in terms of executing campaigns could actually play well on Twitter as well. So
Great. All right, well, thank you guys for this question section. At this point, we're actually going to transition into a bit more of a presentation mode. So Jay, I'm going to turn over to you at this point, and then for the attendees on the call, please continue to send in questions. We're getting some good ones already. So please send in those questions, and we'll answer some questions in just a few minutes.
Great. Thank you so much again for the panelists, and we'll dig into some more topics as we go, but here goes. So I think one of the things I wanted to basically cover in this presentation is talk a little bit about some of the day-to-day challenges facing, you know, the marketer on Facebook, and talk a little bit about, you know, how we might think about actually dealing with them. And then I want to just hit at the very end just a little bit about more detail about, you know, how we approach the problem at Appnique and how we might be able to help others that are interested in the same space. So just for to make sure we're all talking about the same thing, I think, you know, we're all either mobile marketers or, you know, work with mobile marketers. And if you're a mobile marketer, your primary goal is to grow your user base and improve ROI. And ROI can be engagement or monetization driven. And, you know, places you might go to find these users, one, you might go to the stores where people are actually searching, you know, for apps. And that you might go on to other long tail networks or social platforms like Twitter, or even search on Google. or you might advertise on Facebook. So I think there's a variety of different places that you could go. And particularly when it comes to Facebook, one of the things that we talked a lot about is the data advantage that these companies like Facebook have, and how in terms of adapting and adopting the data and deciding where to serve your ad or who to present your offer to. They also have some algorithmic advantages that, as a marketer, stacks the playing field a bit against you. So I think we feel like that's an important area that needs to be thought through. One of the first areas that we've seen people think about in terms of challenges is you start to see poor click-through on ads, and I think the first question is, why is that happening? And certainly one important piece of that is the ad creative, and you really need to think through why that might be happening. Also, you need to think through how many ad banner variations did you have. We've frequently run into advertisers who are producing just a handful of ad banners or maybe even one or two, and seeing maybe positive results from it, but those tend to dry up after a while. So constantly developing new ad banner variations and testing new concepts, I think, is a super important way to deal with that challenge. Another thing that I know is super effective for a lot of folks is if you have a mobile app, showing at least some ad banner variations that show the mobile product in action, I think is super important. Now, it doesn't mean that for every offer or for every app or for every target that'll be the best performing type of creative, but certainly having some that are in the mix that show the product, I think, is super important. And that's the thing I think I also want to leave you with, is that it's whatever your guesses are about which creatives are going to be the most effective, you probably it'll be really hard for you to have that guess up front with just pure intuition. You really need to test and test and test in order to find the right version of the ad that makes sense. In terms of copy variations, again, it's the same story. We've seen just minor differences, just one word variations in copy. That's the copy that's outside of the banner, and those tend to have drastic results or drastic differences in the way people click through on them, and can actually make a big difference. So I think that's something that you really should be looking at a lot of different copy variations on. And then, of course, always wise to keep track of the Facebook guidelines and make sure you measure the text coverage area of your ads. But if you have text on your ads, I think it's also super important to understand, is the text actually communicating the product benefits? Is there a text on it? Very often people will have really visually rich ads, but miss the opportunity to communicate additional benefits of the product, or even reiterate the benefits of the product through text that is actually physically on the banner. So I think here's an example of what a good creative might look like for a fictional app. It really is easy to understand. You really want to test different images. We found, for example, we have one advertiser who has an app that appeals to both hikers and bicyclists. So, but the audience, the actual ads themselves, when they showed people hiking or bicycling, they actually ended up getting better results than when they showed more sort of general outdoor activity type of creative. And then, of course, having multiple versions that you A/B test, I think, is super important. The next thing that we want to tackle is a landing page design. And of course, you might wonder, what is your landing page? And really, this is the everything that belongs in the App Store. So once people click through on the ad, they're going into the App Store experience. They're moving out of Facebook. And you really want to make sure that those people who click onto the ad actually go on to become installers. And what that looks and feels a lot like is App Store optimization. So you really want to think about App Store optimization. What is App Store optimization? For us, the definition of App Store optimization is, making sure you have carefully merchandised your app in the store. So everything that's title, selecting which keywords go into your title, which keywords go into your app description. So when people read the app description, it actually resonates with the customer. The screenshots that are included in the App Store. Of course, now there's also the opportunity to include video, how they communicate the benefits of the product to people. I think that can actually affect your uh, affect whether people actually, once they click through, also install. Another area that also affects conversions that are on your landing pages, the reviews that are displayed, from your users on the actual App Store landing page. So if your ratings are low, or if you had a burst of new poor ratings, you definitely end up, seeing those kinds of results affecting your performance on your paid campaigns. So really paying attention to your App Store presence is a super important part of running an effective campaign. We've also seen that aligning your screenshot with your ad campaigns. So if you had your screenshots in the App Store communicate one benefit, but your ads communicate a different benefit, then you end up with a misalignment between the two that can actually result in poor conversions. Here's a real-life example of someone that actually used App Store optimization to boost their conversion rates from sort of the 17% range to closer to 25% because just by making changes to their App Store copy. So that of course can translate. It seems like it isn't much, but if you think about 15% or 25%, that's almost a third or more improvement in the conversion rate, which can drop your CPI significantly. So that's something to really keep in mind when you think about why App Store optimization is important. Here's an example of a really effective screenshot, which I think one of my favorite conference presentation quotes is from Jeremy Waxman, VP of Marketing at Zillow. Is that the first screenshot really, if they test the effectiveness of that, it turns out to be the most important ad banner you will ever build, is that first screenshot that people see when they hit your App Store landing page. Making sure that that's really compelling and succinctly communicates the benefits of your product, I think is very, very, very important. The other thing a lot of people do is they just use the screenshot of the app as a but really you don't, it can be anything that you put in there. And as you can see in the Zillow case, they have a product benefit, find your home in there, and the product screenshot right below it shown inside the device. And I think that is something that really can be helpful or effective. So now let's move on to targeting. So targeting, I think, is a big and important topic, especially when you're dealing with sophisticated display networks like Facebook. And so there's a plethora of targeting options. So first I'll do kind of a quick inventory of all the different targeting options that are available, and then we'll deep dive into 3 of them just to talk a little bit more about considerations there. So I think one of the first things that people miss the opportunity to take advantage of in a robust way is the platform targeting that's available within Facebook. For example, if it turns out that most of your paying users come from certain types of devices, especially on Android, Facebook allows you to select both the OS version and the specific device make and model number. So if it turns out that cheaper Android handsets don't produce enough pairs, maybe it's a good idea to go after the higher end Android handsets if it turns out that more pairs show up there. Also very important to understand, if people are actually complaining about your app on certain OS versions, to make sure that you select the OS versions that your ad is shown to, so you're not wasting your money or actually advertising to people who then go on to become unhappy users. So that's something that's super important to be very smart about platform and OS selection. Location obviously is a super important area to focus on, especially looking outside of the US. Demographic is an important area, age and gender breakdowns. We've seen, default options for campaigns frequently are gender neutral, but once you start running your campaigns, you find certain pockets of users really respond much better to your offer. So we've seen very strong results when you actually go back and tweak your campaigns to once you show the ads to everybody, then go back and refocus on the people that are actually the best performing pockets of users for you. From an age and gender perspective, that can be very, very helpful as well. Behaviors and categories are 2 other important areas that are where there's a well-known set of available options inside Facebook, and we definitely recommend people use them. Categories in particular, there's some categories that are available off the shelf, others that you can request your Facebook rep to add access to. And all of those can then give you additional benefits by making sure that your product is presented in front of people who are in market for something like your application. The other areas to obviously look at are precise interests, and we'll talk a lot more about those in a second. But I do want to flag those as an important area that you should be focused on. And of course, the all-powerful, almighty lookalike audience that Facebook provides as an option. So now let's talk a little bit about those lookalike audiences. Not all lookalike audiences are created equal. So I think one of the things that is super important is selecting which behavior goes into the custom audience from which you build your lookalike audience. One thing to remember is look for strong signals. For example, if you have a hotel booking application, as one example of a weak signal would be, did someone search for a hotel in a specific market? That might be really important to you, but will Facebook be able to build a lookalike model off of that particular example or cohort of users? Is suspect at best. But if you picked someone that searched a lot in general and put them into a cohort of custom users, or someone who made purchases a lot, or someone who played a lot, depending on your type of app, I think that is something that's super important. One of the things, of course, to also keep in mind is that as you make trade-offs between position and reach, and of course the precision slider goes from 1 to 10%, when you are building a lookalike audience. As you go from go to broader reach audiences, CPI performance frequently suffers, so just something to keep in mind as you build these lookalike audiences. The other thing to remember is that, of course, lookalike audiences can be very powerful, both from an inclusion and an exclusion perspective. So you might want to make sure that in some cases you're actually building lookalike audiences or custom audiences that go into lookalike audiences that actually are good candidates to exclude, because you know that those people will not ever be interested in your offer. So let's go into the behaviors category for a little bit. This is an area where, of course, there's a lot of much broader categories of users that are available: the relationship status, life stage, in-market buyers for various categories of products, and predictions of propensity to purchase are all available as targeting options. And in the precise interest category, we've seen a lot of, the general term used for that and can be keywords, but if you click down further, there's actually behaviors that are available as precise interests as well. So things like coupons that are available, for example, as a behavior or as a precise interest. There's also the ability to target against people based on app or brand affinity. So you can target people based on what other apps or brands they're using, and be able to get great results in terms of interest targeting. The next topic I want to talk a little bit about is budgeting, bidding, and yield management. So in this case, one of the things that you really have to think about is spend. We talked a little bit about how much do you spend when you launch, how do you ramp up. So one thing we've seen, you can be super conservative and just add small amounts of budget, but that might not get you the necessary scale you want. But if you add too much budget, you end up with your CPI going haywire. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, really having a sound strategy for how much you want to spend when you're in a production, and then being very proactive about reallocating spend based on the actual performance of an ad set or campaign. I think is something that's very, very critical to focus on. From a bidding strategy, I think definitely, we're big fans of OCPM, but one thing to keep in mind is that OCPM, buried inside the OCPM bidding, is actually a pre-built bid a maximum bid that is included as part of the OCPM bidding strategy. And so making sure you can go in and modify that so you're actually able to get the yield you need is something that's super important, because not all OCPM campaigns are able to deliver at that target price. And then once you have CPA bidding available to you, once a campaign is run for a little while, really making decisions that are based on lifetime value to decide what what CPA you're willing to pay is something that is super important. CPA bidding, I would caution everybody, is not for the faint of heart because it really something that needs to be vigorously monitored and modified as needed, but something that can be pretty powerful in driving down your acquisition costs. And then yield management, I think the main topic here, honestly, is looking at post-install metrics and return on ad spend. Obviously you can go look at it at a ad creative level, but even if you pay attention to it at the ad target or ad set level, you can really learn a lot in order to maximize your yield and decide what's working and what isn't. So, and of course, one of the inevitable things that also happens with Facebook campaigns is that they mysteriously fall over or die or stop producing, and in some cases that means that you need to relaunch them. In other cases, it means that you need to start over with fresh, creative or targeting. And I think sometimes a bit of both is called for, and so it's all part of the yield management process as you go. Now I just want to dive through a few quick slides about our internal capabilities on the Facebook platform, just so you get a better sense of what it is, how we approach the same challenges. So just at a very high level, we have a platform and a companion managed service. We're big believers in targeting as a source of leverage, but we also understand the need to focus on yield and bid optimization and other forms of harvesting users. And so our main focus is on collecting a wide range of metadata. The way to think about this is that if the social network has its own source of data, our goal is to try to collect data sources that are similar, unstructured data sources, comments, social media streams, or web metadata or app store data, and help that we then mine to try to develop insight that can help the marketer do a better job of predicting where to buy on Facebook. One of the cool things about our interest targeting approach is that we don't need any CRM or customer data, so we don't need custom audiences to build them. And we work with whatever measurement provider you already have. We don't really need an additional SDK. And of course, we're fully integrated with the Facebook Ads API, so we're able to buy and modify and monitor campaigns programmatically. Here's an example of, it's a bit of an eye chart, but just to give you a sense of how we go about the process of establishing affinity. This is an example we put up for Skype. And one of the things we do frequently is break these apps down into salient keywords that are used by the same apps, and then go into the App Store to go find other apps that are using similar keywords, and then use those keywords or other related behaviors to establish affinity between the app you're trying to market, in this case Skype, and other apps. And you can see examples like Viber and WeChat, and Uvu were all identified programmatically by our tool in order to, and all could form the basis of potential targets for a Skype-related campaign. Another strategy that we use for interest modeling, and this is an example we put it for a game that's in the strategy space, is we actually look at what people say in reviews and what apps people review. For example, in this case, the game we're looking at is a game called Battle Nations, and it turns out that people who use Minecraft are also frequently review Battle Nations, and so we're able to use that type of data from the App Store. And if you go look at the rightmost column, you'll see, that Minecraft actually has a viable Facebook interest with a reach of 21 million people that we could go after in order to market this app. Or we could go after the audience, the Star Wars audience, because it turns out that a lot of people who play Star Wars Commander also review Battle Nations. So that's an example of interest in affinity modeling that we are able to do using our tools. One of the other things that also come super handy is our ability to actually understand, the overlap or lack thereof between different audiences. So here's an example of a game and a lookalike audience for that game, and two other types of interest groups, one focused on Western RPGs and the other Um, um, uh, um, the other one was energy drinks, and so you can see that how much overlap there is between the interest audience and the lookalike audience you're targeting, and that then gives you a pretty solid basis for making decisions about whether to focus on those interest audiences or not. And then one of the things, the last thing I want to hit is a bit about pricing factors. So understanding, hey, your CPI went up or down. Why did it go up? Was it because of a drop in conversion rate or an increase in CPM? Those types of analyses. So we have tools that let us monitor and understand how we're performing relative to a CPI target, and understand how the different ad sets we're focused on, actually help us get to the level we're focused on. That's something that we have tools for as well. So that's pretty much all I have to share about our platform. But now I just want to talk about 5 keys again. Creative. Focus on your creative, build lots of them, test them, have variations with and without product, build a robust App Store landing page, test, modify, and retest your App Store landing page to make sure it works well with the campaigns you're running. Target carefully, use all the different targeting options that are available on Facebook in a robust fashion. And of course, measure post-install performance, really try to understand what's working, what isn't, and then use those post-install metrics to inform your decisions. And then the most important thing, I think, is it's like managing your 401k. It's not enough to just set it up and leave it alone. You have to actively manage cost and yield in order to make sure that things are performing. Now I will wrap up my presentation and turn it over to questions.
All right, thanks, Jay. Really appreciate all those details, and actually sparked a lot of questions, so I'm loving to jump into that right now. And I'm going to start with you, Jay, actually on this first question. It's based around lookalike audiences, and you had mentioned that earlier on in your presentation. So the question here says, my Facebook rep tells me that I should just use lookalike audiences and that should be sufficient. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think lookalike audiences are very, very powerful, but one of the things I mentioned earlier was this trade-off between position and performance. So the more precise your lookalike audience, the smaller it tends to be. You get great performance, but then you don't necessarily understand, as you try to increase the pool of users, your performance falls off pretty quickly. So making use of a lookalike audience as one part of your targeting strategy, I think is super important, but turning it into the entirety of your targeting strategy is a mistake.
Okay, great, thank you. And Jeff, I'm actually going to ask you the same question. What is your experience with using only lookalike audiences?
Yeah, totally agree with Jay. They are super powerful, but there's so many other avenues to target on there that I think you would be doing yourself a disservice with just focusing on lookalikes only.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question here, I'm going to turn to you, Philip, on this one. The question says, when I start to ramp my budget up, the CPI spikes. Why does this happen and how do I avoid it?
Because Facebook is the devil, first and foremost. As you guys are saving this, aren't you? Great. I'm going to hear it from our reps over at Facebook. Like, what are you talking about? Joking aside, so CPI definitely starts to ramp up the more users you want to target. So when you're looking at your reach amounts, you're looking at reaching 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 2 million users. In order to get in front of more of those people to create that reach, you have to spend more, so your CPI goes up. So be aware of the size of reach, what you're looking for in your daily budgets. If you're trying to spend $2,000 a day to reach everybody, your CPI is definitely going to scale up. So be ready to start, breaking those campaigns down into multiple campaigns, so that you can, help mitigate that very common problem.
Great, thank you for that. I'm going to jump into the next question here, and I'm going to target this one at Jeff, but I may have you guys throw your answers into this one too. This is a common question I've heard from customers as well, is how many ad banners should I create, as well as copy variations? What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
I don't have a perfect science to that. I don't know if this is proven at all, but and this may be a little too aggressive, but we like to test at least like six iterations per each creative. And they could be the smallest iteration. You know, the banners move from the left to the right side, or we don't include the app badging. But yeah, I would say 6 is a good start. That's what we do usually. And as far as creative, at least 2 iterations on, or sorry, as far as copy, at least 2 iterations per each creative, I think is a good test. But
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to ask you the same question too, Jay. Have you found about the same results as Jeff's mentioning above or earlier?
Yeah, I think definitely having more creatives the better is my mantra. But I think one of the things you also have to be really careful about is, especially when you're doing testing, initial creative testing, and you're trying to understand both. If you try to establish both the CPI and click-through rate metrics for different ads, if you have too many of them in an ad set, Facebook seems to get confused about how many and how much it love to give each ad banner. So making sure that when you structure your campaign, you don't have too many ad banner and copy variations in an ad set relative to the size of the spend budget, I think is something that is something to be really mindful of.
Good point.
Otherwise, it just takes you longer to learn, which ads are working.
All right, so the next question I have, Phillip, I'm going to have this one for you. How long should I spend testing my creative and targeting before I start ramping up spend?
You should get a very good indicator within a day or two. And also it depends on what time you turn on ads. Everybody knows that the peak time on Facebook is between 7 and 9 p.m. I believe. And so if you start things later in the day, you may not get the same results as if it would have fired up, say, at 12:01 in the morning and then ran an entire day. Back in the day, you could, in the middle of a campaign, you could put a very high CPI on it, or a very high CPC, I'm sorry, you couldn't even bid at CPI at the time, in order to force their system to give you distribution. And then from there, you could dial it back once you were able to go ahead and get high click-through rates, high install rates. And Facebook was thinking like, wow, this is fantastic. You dial back your spend. It was a way to kind of game the system. They've done a fantastic job of closing loopholes like that, which is very unfortunate. It only makes their jobs a little bit harder. But I mean, you should know within a day whether or not a campaign is going to sink or swim. You could possibly run it 2 days, but the sooner the better. And as far as duration is in running campaigns, and I try not to run things more than a couple days, anyways. Saturation, ad saturation is very common. People get very fickle. We're constantly testing. I would say that I have no campaigns running right now that have run more than possibly 4 days.
Great, thank you. All right, Jay, I'm going to turn this one to you. The CPI on the campaign has been way too high. What is the case, or what should I be doing about this, and why is that the case?
So I think one of the things that to really look at is, what is the underlying trend that is causing this CPI? And the 4 or 5 of the sort of 4 key metrics we pay attention to first are, just the classic conversion funnel. What's the click-through rate? How many of those people installed? And what's the CPM? Those are sort of the 3 key variables. If you have a very poor click-through rate, obviously it's a combination of either your ad or your targeting, or both are flawed and needs to be revisited. If the CPM is high, which it frequently can be, it's an indication of a lot of price competition in the market, and maybe you just have to get used to the idea of paying a higher CPI. Or if the install rate is poor, and I think the thing to really think about is, let's go look and see what can I do in terms of the, in terms of modifying my App Store landing page or my ad creative to align those two together better, so people understand when I click through and I go to the App Store, I'm going to get what I expect. I think those are all proactive steps you can take, and really looking at those 3 key metrics, I think, can be super helpful. And one of the lovely things about our platform, if I may plug that for a second, is that we monitor those key metrics programmatically and send you alerts when things go out of whack. So when CPI spike, and if it's accompanied by one of those types of changes, we're able to notify you that that change has happened, and give you more insight into what you can go do.
Great. Thank you, Jay. One last question, and Jeff, I'm going to turn this to you. This says, the CPI of my campaign started out fine, but my ads stopped showing after a while and my install volume dried up. Why is this happening?
Yeah, I see that quite a bit. Unlike Phillip, sometimes we let campaigns run for months at a time. If we're getting good CPIs, good volume still, we'll let them go. If that's the case, they're just too saturated, right? I mean, they just have had their full life cycle, and it's time to switch things up and test something else out, refresh creative. There are a number of things that you could test, but doing something differently, I think, is the main choice, or the choice one should make when something like that occurs in the platform.
All right. Well, we are coming to an end of our time frame, and so I want to take this time to thank all the panelists for showing up and providing your insights into helping our fellow mobile marketers figure out how we can deal with some of the challenges within advertising within the social networking space. I also want to thank the attendees for showing up too and giving up an hour. I know we're all very busy, but this is great information, hopefully that we can share and help each other with. And as I stated at the beginning of the presentation, this will be made available so you guys can review. And if you have any questions at all, or interested in learning a little bit more about Appnique or just working with the panelists as well, please feel free to reach out to us at info@appnique.com. So that will be it from this point. And so, Jay, did you have any last words you wanted to throw in, or any of the other panelists?
No, I think just want to thank again Jeff and Phillip for their time today, and thank you all for attending.
Oops. All right, everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.